Hey Mount Zion family, it's so good to see you and I'm glad that you're here. If you notice, I got a little bit of a different background. I'm not where I have been for the past few weeks, and that's because me and Brittany have finally started to move into the house. Saturday was the day that we moved a lot of stuff over into this area, and so we're just excited, and it's been such a great opportunity to think about the future and what's going to happen. That moving into a different place, moving into a different location is normally a time to think about new beginnings. It's thinking about a new time together. And that's what we're excited about. We're excited about a new time with Mount Zion. And we appreciate you joining us this morning in our stream. We appreciate you so much for the work that you do. I'm thankful so much for the elders who have given me this opportunity, and I've already talked to you all about that. And I just appreciate everyone today for the support that you've been giving me and my wife, and we're just so thankful for being here this morning. I'm just so hoping and praying that we get to meet each other and get to be with each other very, very soon, hopefully very soon. And so just continue to remember the church in your prayers. Continue to remember us and the church as a community of believers that we desire to be one again in presence. And we're hoping and praying that that can happen very, very soon. This morning I want to talk a little bit about Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16, it's a very well-known passage that we're probably all familiar with, that we've read many, many times. And there's a good reason for that. And in Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16, it goes this: "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." I mean, that sounds pretty good. Especially the way Jesus says it. It's almost like he's looking right at us and saying, you are the light of the world. You are the light that is going to shine before all the people. You are the light that is bright and that everyone looks upon. And yet it's not looking upon you, it's looking upon the Father and the greatness of what he does. And I think that that's inspirational. I think that it's motivating, that it can cause us to actually jump up and say, I want to work. I want to go about and do for the Father. But in all of that inspiration, in all of that excitement, we may forget, or we may not actually fully know, what does it mean to be the light of the world? What does it mean to be light? I have this giant light above me right now that's glaring down at me. And yet, what does that mean for us? What's the metaphor, or what is the idea that Jesus is trying to tell us? What's the comparison that he's making when he thinks about people being light? And that's kind of what that is actually what we want to talk about this morning. We want to talk about, what does it mean for us to be the light of the world? What does God desire for us when he describes to us that we are light? And to know that, Jesus is a Jewish man. He is someone who is steeped into the Old Testament scriptures, and a lot of our scriptures are based on the idea of the Old Testament and the fulfillment of the Old Testament, especially in the book of Matthew, as we've been talking in our Wednesday night series, The Names of Jesus. That Matthew is wanting to talk about the fulfillment of Scripture. And so he's really wrestling, and he's thinking about the ideas in the Old Testament and bringing them to the forefront of the early church as he writes. And so that's where we have to think as we begin to understand, well, what is the message that Jesus wants us to know? And that is, where does light come from? Well, what does the Old Testament say about light? And where's the first mention of the word light in our Old Testament? Well, if you said Genesis 1, then you're absolutely right. Because Genesis 1 is the very beginning of our Bibles, and it's the very creation story of not only the earth, but the light specifically. I mean, remember this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over all the face of the waters. Well, before we even get into light, we really talk about darkness. That darkness surrounds the earth in this form. Darkness surrounds the earth, and that, or actually not the earth, but this formless and void thing that's there. And so this darkness that reigns over is actually the opposite of light. And so we need to understand, well, what does God mean by darkness? What is this formless and void that God is fixing and making and creating out of? Well, what's interesting is the form, without form and void, actually comes from kind of an interesting phrase in the Hebrew. It's called the tohu vavohu. And so you can actually hear people talk about this. I'm sure that preachers before me have talked about this before with you. And it's only used a few times in the Bible. And one of those times is in Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 23 through 26. In Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 23 through 26, we have this phrase, this without form and void, being used, that Jeremiah is trying to talk about the destruction that God will bring on the people. And notice with me, Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 23 through 26. I beheld the earth, and indeed it was without form and void. So there's our word, those are our words. And the heavens, they had no light. So this is already taking us back into the creation, into when God actually created. I beheld the mountains, and indeed they trembled. And on the hills they moved back and forth. I beheld, and indeed there was no man, and all the birds of the heavens had fled. I beheld, and indeed the fruitful land was a wilderness, and all its cities were broken down at the presence of the Lord by his fierce anger. So Jeremiah is talking about almost what's going to happen to the cities, what's going to happen to these places. Well, God's almost going to reverse creation, and in reversing creation, all of these cities, all of these things are going to be destroyed. The hills, even the hills and the mountains, they will move back and forth and back and forth, that the mountains will crumble. And this goes also with Job chapter 38. If you think about the waters, and that what does God do with the waters back in Job 38 verses 8 through 11? Well, he puts them within bars. He puts them within boundaries. He swaddles them almost like a mother with a baby. He has this control over the waters. And so this formless and void, this without form and void, it seems to be really, especially in Jeremiah gives us this understanding of chaos, of this scary moment of when nothing is for sure. And you know this just as well as I do about water. When you go to the beach, people talk about riptides and the current that goes under the water, that there's all sorts of articles and things. And I grew up in a beach town, and I really never worried about riptides, but I have experienced one before. And it's very frightening when you think about water, that this thing, as it grows in abundance, that it becomes more frightening as the water surrounds you. That's why you really don't want to be in the middle of the ocean without a boat, or without a life vest, or without any of those necessities that we go out into the waters with. It's frightening when we think about moments like Castaway with Tom Hanks, where he crashes into the ocean. He has to swim on this salvaged things, not salvaged, but these things that are part of the airplane crash, and he is in the middle of the ocean, and he floats to this island. Well, luckily he floats to the island, and then as he comes out, he floats and he takes this risk by trying to escape the island with the porta potty. But what I mean by this, and I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but what I'm trying to say to you this morning is to talk about that water is chaotic. We can't control the water. We can't control the water and what it does. We can't see how it is. And that's what the Spirit of God hovers over. He hovers over this formless and void pool of water, this ocean of water. And that's the chaos that God puts into control. That's where God in Job chapter 38 talks about, I have put bars in between the waters. I have set its limits. I have put it in control. Think about the mountains and the hills. They move back and forth. Well, what else moves back and forth like hills? Well, if you think about waves of the ocean that just constantly move and move and move, that they're almost reverting back into this water base. The mountains have disintegrated into like waters, and now they move just like the waves of waters. But this chaotic life, this darkness that people surround themselves with, I mean, we see people walking in darkness, and the Bible talk about walking in darkness. A good example is in Psalm chapter 82, verse 5. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are unstable. These people who are blind, who are just moving around, there's no foundation. There's nowhere for them to truly stand and to be firm. They stand there in just utter chaos in their life. Isaiah chapter 29. In Isaiah chapter 29, verses 15 through 16. Woe to those who seek deep to hide, woe to those who seek deep to hide their counsel far from the Lord, and their works are in the dark, this dark place where no one can see them. They say, who sees us? Who knows us? Surely you have things turned around. Shall the potter be esteemed as the clay? For shall the thing made say of him who made it, he did not make me? Or shall the thing formed say of him who formed it, he has no understanding? It's interesting when we think that when people can't see us that we're okay. That there's some sort of control that we have that God doesn't know about, or that other people all around us don't know. And that's what a lack of knowledge or darkness, that's what it hides from us. It hides from us this ability to recognize that, no, I'm not in control. That this sin is not actually helping me in life. It's actually hurting me. And that's what darkness does. It hides. It puts us in this mode of chaos, of living in the chaos. And that's what God actually rescues us from. If you go back to Genesis chapter 1, that's what God's rescuing us from in this dangerous time. Because as God looks, as the Spirit of God is hovering over the face of the waters and the face of the deep, as He's looking over the formless and void, this is what He does. He said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Notice that the first thing that He does is He actually creates light, and He says, hey, this is going to be the light. Well, where is this light coming from? Because the sun, the moon, and the stars, they're not created until day 4. And that's where we get our light. That's where we get everything that we know as light, from the sun. And yet this light is independent of that sun. This light is something that only God can create. And He takes that light and He creates it and He puts it in its proper place. He keeps the darkness in its proper place, just like Job 38, 8 through 11. He keeps it in its proper place and He puts bounds on it. And then He allows the light and He puts bounds on it. And He creates this order. Because that's how you solve the problem of chaos, is you put things in order. You order things the way that they ought to be. And God is this master builder who can put those things that are chaotic into order. He can actually put order into the chaos, which is outstanding. And that's the amazing God that we serve, is one who puts an order to the chaos. He is the one that we can trust to give us the light, to lead us in the right direction. I mean, Psalm 119, 105, your word is a lamp unto my feet. Well, what does a lamp do? Well, a lamp gives light. Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. That what order does is it gives us a direction. It opens our eyes to where we can look and to see what's going on around us. We're not blinded and we're not trying to hide anything from around us. We're not trying to look for some place to hunker down and protect ourselves from the unknowns, because God makes the unknowns known. He takes that darkness, He turns it into light. He takes that chaos and He puts order to it. And that's the amazing God that we serve. Is a God who wants His people to be in order. He wants his people to have order, even in the midst of chaos. And a good example of this is actually in Isaiah chapter 60. In Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 3. A really good passage. Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 3. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth. So the darkness is all over the earth, and deep darkness the people. But the Lord will arise over you. This light, this glory of the Lord, and his glory will be seen upon you. In verse 3, this is what's important. The Gentiles shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. That this, if we take this order and chaos, this difference, that the darkness is the chaos, and we can even see in the world there's so much chaos. There's so much going on that people can't control, and they're trying to control it, but the chaos, the lack of knowledge, the lack of control is killing people. It's killing people. And that's what sin is. Sin is this chaotic force that desires people to not be in a union, does not desire people to be unified, but it desires the worst. It desires for me to mistreat the people around me. It desires me to hurt those that I presume to love. It makes me to hurt all of the relationships that are around me. It causes me to look at other people and to say, you're not as important as me. And yet in the people of God, especially Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 3. What the people are actually supposed to be running to is this light. The Gentiles are running to the light. They're running to the glory of the Lord. Because the glory of the Lord is bright, and it blows our minds away because of how bright it is. And it opens our eyes to such a level that we want to continue to look. And they're running towards it. Because in the light, things can't be hidden. In the light, we can see the truth. In the light, we can see God's greatness. In the light, in the order, when things are ordered, we can see the greatness of God's creation and of what God desires for his people. And in an ordered world where we live like God, where we love and have compassion and kindness and goodness towards people, we can see the order that God desired right there in the very beginning in the creation, in Genesis chapter 1. What he desired for us. And that should be seen in the church. And that's what Jesus wants us to see in Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. You are the light of the world, the order to the chaos. You are what God desired in the very beginning, to put the order to the chaos. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill that it cannot be hidden. And Gentiles will stream to it and go to it. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket. Why? Because it does no good. It actually would probably do more chaotic things. It'll just cause more problems. But you put the lamp on a lampstand. And you know what it does? It gives light to all the house. And that light that gives order, you let that light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. That good works. In the idea of good works, there's actually two ways to think about good works in the Bible. There's good that is like, well, this tie is good. Why? Because it's doing exactly what a tie is supposed to do. It's a good tie because it does what a tie is supposed to do. Whether you think it's pretty or not, I hope you think it's pretty. My wife picked it out, but I did not pick it out. But it's good because of what it does. It's a tie. It wraps around my neck. But there's another good, and it's this good right here. And this good is actually the good that means beautiful. It means pretty. It's the type of good that you want to look at and you say, that's a beautiful thing. That is gorgeous. I want to continue to look at that. I want to continue to see it. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your beautiful works. The great things about your works. The gorgeous things about your works. And when they see that beauty, they think about your Father in heaven. They think about God. And that's actually what we desire for people. That's actually what we want for people. We want people to see the order that we bring to the world. And we want people to see that as the glory of God. We want people to see that as God's work within our community at Mount Zion. We want people to see how great our God is because of how we treat people. We treat people in an orderly fashion. And I don't just mean in like we shake hands with everybody, but I mean we show love for everybody. We care about people and how they're doing. We build relationships with them. But we also, more importantly, we treat them right. We don't cheat people. We don't misuse them. We don't seek our own benefit in what we do for them. We don't ask for return on the investment that we're paying on somebody. Well, I'll do this if you do that. That's not an orderly society. That's not what the order that God wants to bring. God wants us to sacrificially love people. That brings order. Caring for other people. And just to let you know, those people that you see at work, those people that you see at school, you might be the only light that they see. There was a story of a little boy in Glasgow. This was back in the 1800s when the buildings were real tall and they were really close together. And there was this little alleyway that this man was walking down. And he saw this little boy. And what this little boy was doing was he had a piece of a mirror. And he had this broken piece of mirror that he was trying to it was kind of weird. He was kind of angling it, trying to get some light. And it looked like he was trying to show some light up into a room. And he stopped and he asked this boy, "What are you doing?" And the little boy said this. He said, my brother's been up there and he's been sick. He's been stuck in the house for months. And he hasn't really had an ability to get out. And he hasn't been able to see the sun. And so I'm trying my best just to show him a little light, to give him a little warmth. And I think that that's what we're supposed to do. As the light of the world, our goal, our duty is to bring order to the world. We can't do that when we're fighting with people. We can't do that when we're desiring people and yelling at people to try to understand our side of a political debate. We're not going to do that when we're trying to use people to get what we want. That's not how order works. That's darkness and chaos. That's when we're hiding, when no light's on. And we're just trying to make it into this world. But now God is actually desiring. He's desiring for us to find that light. And this morning, if you need to find that light, today is the day. Finding that light, being enlightened, is today to be baptized if you haven't been. To find that new way of life, like in Romans chapter 6, verse 4, that newness of life where you follow after Jesus, you pick up your cross and you follow him. To live like him in self-sacrificial love. Maybe today you need to have prayers for you. Maybe the chaos has surrounded you. The chaos is just so crazy. There's so much going on that you're just so blinded that you have failed to see God. And because you failed to see God, the reactions, the way that you've been living is just completely foreign to God. If you need prayers, today's the day. Give us a call. Let us know. Send us a Facebook message. Let us know what's going on. I hope that you're doing well. If you need anything, and let us know. Thank you so much for being here. Continue to pray for the church. Hopefully we'll be meeting back very, very soon on Sunday mornings. Pray for our elders. These are tough decisions that are going around right now. Pray for the church as a whole all around the world. Let's pray for the church that we may continue to bring order to a world that is chaotic. Thank you so much, and I hope that you have a great week. We'll see you Wednesday.